Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Congratulations, you made it. We finally have new Invincible episodes. This will be my Season 4, Episodes 1, 2, and 3 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs, WTF moments from the comics, so we will break it all down. Thragg is finally here on the show. I cannot wait to see him do awful, awful things to all the characters this season. He's going to wreck everybody. The title of Episode 1 is Making the World a Better Place. It's a reference to Mark's desire to make the world a better place, and the irony of Dinosaurus' comments that killing all those people during the Invincible War also helped make the world a better place. So he's questioning whether or not he is actually making the world a better place. Struggling with the idea of what it takes to actually do that. Does he need to start killing villains in order to protect the people that he loves? The episode starts with a little time jump in the aftermath of the Conquest fight at the end of last season and the Invincible War, with Mark trying to help clean up the damage as well as doing overtime hero duty, helping to make the world a better place per the title of the episode. But everyone is seeing him, and it reminds them of the Invincible War and his variants from other universes, so they think of him as being evil. Everyone is afraid of him and what he might do. So he's been working overtime, trying to do everything he can to turn around public opinion on himself, trying to convince everyone that he's trying to be a hero, along with Oliver also helping, but also having his own problems, Oliver having his own problems, because he's still a little kid, technically, even though his body grows really fast, and he still wants to do little kid things. So the idea is that the season starts with Mark at a new low. Robert Kirkman actually joked that they see each season, how low can we take Mark? Like, what new lows can we bring him to? So he'll probably end this season even more depressed than he is at the beginning of the season. The actual song that they use over this opening montage is Nothing But Thieves, If I Get High. You notice he's got the robot design casts on his legs and arms because he's still healing from the damage from the Conquest fight. Viltrumites do have a healing factor, and the fact that he heals the damage by the end of the episode enough to take the cast off is also meant to remind you when Conquest also escapes at the end of the episode too, because he also heals all of his damage from that fight too. You also notice during the montage of all the takedowns all over the world how casual Mark has gotten about this. Like, he is so fried in the head, not bothering to stop with any conversation with anybody while he's doing all of his rounds. Oliver also kind of doing the same thing too, speed running all their saves. They bring back the rest of the heroes from last season, Adam Eve also taking people down, Cecil, the GDA, the Guardians, the new version of the Guardians team. There are a couple other groups of heroes also honoring the dead for more funerals from the Invincible War. Most of you also probably recognize Haley Joel Osment here. The character is actually named Burley, but he's meant to look like Haley Joel Osment. They haven't listed who the voice actor is. Maybe they'll actually get him to voice act for this. The ashes that he's putting in the river belong to Shrapnel, one of the other superheroes who was his friend who was killed by the Invincible variants. We see a new kaiju monster, which seems like another reference to the Toho Godzilla movies, maybe like a cross between Gamera and Godzilla, because it seems kind of lizard-like, but it also has a turtle-like shell with spikes. Then the reason why Donald takes over for Cecil is because he's mostly a cyborg now and doesn't need to sleep the way that Cecil does, but as we see, and Cecil talks about later with Invincible, he doesn't sleep the same way that he used to. He uses that special regeneration tank. They reveal that Mark is still having PTSD flashbacks to the Conquest fight with Adam Eve almost dying. She kind of did die for a hot second, which is what caused her power limits to drop, enabling her to use the full extent of her powers and regenerate her entire body and one-shot Conquest. That's how powerful she is. She's like one of the most powerful people on the show. When he mentions the furnace villain that he wants Oliver to stop, he's based on Neutron from the Superman comics. When he goes into Oliver's room to try and get his help, the Ultra Skull poster also feels like an in-universe movie reference to Ghost Rider just because of the skull in the fire. When he's busy trying to give him the pep talk and explain why it's important for them to be heroes and help people do everything they can to make people believe that they are heroes, it seems like Oliver is playing a parody of Pokemon on a version of a Nintendo Switch, a copyright-safe version of a Nintendo Switch. Please, Nintendo, don't sue Invincible. Has a really quick conversation with Debbie, hammering home how he's feeling the weight of being a Viltrumite right now on the planet and trying to be a good person, make people believe that he's a good person, which they use for the title treatment. And this season, because they do something creative with the title each season, like they reveal something beneath it at some point, this season it's meant to be a reference with the white and gray cracking to reveal something flying through space behind it. If you can see the stars of space flying behind it. Obviously, the white and gray is meant to be a reference to the Viltrumite military uniforms. We see a lot of that in episode 2, and I think it's going to break away to reveal early theory Thragg flying through space to destroy them all, like the title will reveal Thragg and the other Viltrumites flying through space to come get them. All because this whole season is the beginning of the Viltrumite War arc. It's like the Viltrumite season of Invincible, or like the first of a couple seasons of Viltrumite seasons. There are a number of different major conflicts in the actual comics that involve the Viltrumites. This is just like the first big one. Cecil then reforms the Guardians of the Globe with the ones who quit last season, and the reference to Cecil's plans to take them all out and they go bad is a Batman Tower of Babel reference. Batman in the DC Comics has contingency plans to kill all the other members of the Justice League if they ever turn evil. Invincible's next big fight winds up being against Dinosaurus, who's a big character from the comics who baited him into a trap. He's voiced by Matthew Rhys, who you probably recognize from a bunch of different shows. He's a parody of the Lizard from Marvel Spider-Man comics in that he's a genius scientist who transforms into a lizard-like form. In the Invincible universe, he's a genius yet mentally unstable human scientist with a dissociative identity who morphs into a powerful red humanoid dinosaur whenever he experiences apathy or boredom, and he's a radical utilitarian and lethal eco-terrorist. Thus, all the conversation here where he's trying to explain to Invincible how killing all the humans during the Invincible War was actually a good thing. And they basically use this whole encounter to push Mark to the point where he starts to believe that maybe he should kill people, like basically testing him on the road to going dark and actually making his first real kill, like actual kill, at the end of the episode. Part of the idea for Mark, at least at the beginning of this season, is testing his whole no-kill rule, thinking maybe he should kill people because leaving villains alive always winds up going badly for them in the future, which also winds up being a small arc for the robot character too, where he's like, maybe we should find a more final way to deal with our villains so that they're not threats in the future. So it's a real test these first couple of episodes to see how dark Mark is going to go before something changes. He almost winds up killing Dinosaurus because of this until the Guardians show up to actually stop him before he can, and he was going to kill him had the Guardians not shown up. Then Mark and Adam Eve have the most awkward dinner possible with her parents, basically introducing her boyfriend to her parents. He hates all superheroes and blames Invincible for pretty much all the bad things that have happened to him, all starting with him losing his better job because of the Chicago fight that he had with Omni-Man in Season 1, and Adam Eve almost just dying during the Conquest fight, which her father also blames him for too. When he tells Mark he'll understand when he has kids of his own someday, that's meant to be foreshadowing for the post-credits scene in Episode 3, where Adam Eve finds out that she is pregnant with Mark's first child. This is just the beginning of that idea, the whole idea of the two of them having children. This will be a much bigger deal going forward, like several years into the future of the comics. We can't talk too much about what's happening. We don't get too far ahead of the story, but the comics actually ended several years ago. So like they're out there to read. You can go find out what happens with them having more children if you want to right now. There's a lot of really messed up stuff that happens with Mark, Adam, Eve, and children. Also really messed up, Adam Eve's mother implies she kind of hates being married to her father, like marriage is a prison for her, which is meant to make Adam Eve feel way more complicated on her views on marriage and actually starting a family with Mark, having children, foreshadowing that post-credit scene in Episode 3. Like, she's meant to feel very reticent to want to have kids because her childhood was so messed up, and her parents are so messed up. This is also why in the first couple of episodes why her powers are on the fritz. The pregnancy just causes her powers to work a little bit weird. Then we see the two subway workers get captured by the Sequids, setting up the next big arc of the episode, which is all about pushing Mark to finally make that first real kill. We also get another real big cameo scene from Denai Guerrera, another Walking Dead actor showing up in the Invincible universe because Robert Kirkman created The Walking Dead, he also created the Invincible comics, so there's a lot of Walking Dead people who bounce back and forth between the shows. She's playing a character called Universa from the Invincible comics who's kind of a parody of Thor, and her plot in the actual episode is a little bit like Dar Ben's plot from the Marvels movie, in that she's stealing resources from Earth to bring to her planet because her planet is dying, but she also wields that electrical-based weapon that only she can wield that nobody else can actually touch. A little bit like Thor's hammer. They don't really get too deep into her character in this episode, but she's from another universe. We might see more of her later this season. We get a little more of Debbie's arc with Paul. They're talking about moving in together, getting really serious together. This is all leading, obviously, towards a confrontation between her reunion with Omni-Man when he eventually returns to Earth, as we saw in all the trailers, in his continued redemption arc, trying to make amends for what he did to Debbie. When Invincible and Adam Eve are finally able to take Universa down before she can cause the meltdown, the reason why Adam Eve is able to punch her lights out without using any special powers is because they separate her from her staff, and all of her power comes from the staff. So all you have to do is just basically take it away from her, and she's just like anybody else. We don't really see too much of her after this part of the episode, but she gets thrown in a GTA prison. Oliver then gets his newest costume because he's growing so fast. This time it's just red and black. They reference him still keeping the kid Omni-Man name, causing her to flash back to Omni-Man getting his first costume, saying that Immortal asked him to use one. She's still pregnant with Mark, you notice. Also a lot of pregnancy, a lot of children references in this episode too, meant to flow with the whole Adam Eve pregnancy storyline. Mark Hamill also returns to voice the Art character. He also makes a Darkwing joke, not liking his costume. Darkwing is meant to be a Batman parody reference. Mark Hamill also voiced the Joker during Batman the Animated Series. So I have a feeling that Robert Kirkman is like, how many times can we get Mark Hamill to talk about Batman-related stuff? Then the Guardians fail to take down the Sequids, making Mark feel like he's forced to kill Russ Livingston in order to save the rest of the planet, causing the big turn in the episode that freaks everybody out, including Cecil, like, oh no, what's going to happen to Mark now if he goes super dark? Kind of putting Cecil now on the opposite side of the whole argument that Mark had with him in previous seasons. The whole reason why he broke with Cecil was because of their clashing moral philosophies and Cecil's ruthless utilitarian tactics and his distrust of Mark and the contingency plans that he kept coming up with, like the Invincible versions of the Reaniman that they're making right now. Mark has not learned about them yet, but he will, and he will not be happy about it. But even worse, another secret that Cecil winds up keeping from Mark, at least short term, is the post-credit scene. Conquest becomes conscious again, healing his damage from the fight at the end of Season 3, then easily breezes his escape away back to Viltrum, the home planet of the Viltrumites, to meet with Thragg again. Joking that Mark was a fool to leave him alive after the last fight, just hammering home the idea that maybe Mark should kill some people sometimes, like maybe it's okay to kill some people.
The boy left me alive. Oh, stupid.
Then the title of episode 2 is I'll Give You the Grand Tour, which is a reference to both Alan's apartment when he introduces Omni-Man to his girlfriend, Telia, and the Star Trek Enterprise ship parody, Grand Tour of this special ship, which is the copyright-safe version of the Star Trek Enterprise from the Next Generation. Pretty much everybody on that ship is a parody of the Next Gen crew. But the opening scene is mostly meant to be a Viltrumite episode with lots of flashback to show Omni-Man's history growing up and the origin of the Scourge virus. So it actually starts with Thetis sending the Scourge virus to Viltrum disguised as an asteroid, and then it's slowly working its way across the planet, and it seems like it takes a couple months to actually work through all their people. Like it's something that starts very quickly, but takes a long time to work its way through the rest of their race. When we first go to their planet, though, we see them preparing more military vessels for more wars of conquest. They use a lot of slave labor, conquered races who serve them out of fear. But this is after the Purge, after the Viltrumite Civil War, after Thetis killed their Emperor Argol, and then they killed half of their race, basically the half that supported Argol that rebelled against the other half. So the whole idea is that when you see a young Omni-Man teaching the younglings about their former Emperor Argol, it's meant to be ironic for a number of different reasons. There are a couple things about Argol that they don't reveal yet till like later this season. We'll talk about that too. The scene here of Omni-Man underneath his statue will be even more ironic than it just is right now with revealing that Thetis was the person who killed Argol. They get very Game of Thronesy with this whole Viltrumite subplot and Omni-Man's backstory. There are a lot of secrets about his backstory that Omni-Man doesn't know himself that Thetis has to explain to him. The whole idea is that Emperor Argol is the person credited with turning the Viltrumites into the hardcore race of conquerors that they have become in present day. One of Argol's most powerful generals was Thragg, who then became the regent of their people and declared that they would kill off the weaker half of their race who supported the rebellion. Thetis then explains this is what caused him to create the Scourge virus because he thought that killing Argol would solve all the problems, but it only made the race worse, so that's why he sent the virus. Then the virus winds up killing 99.9% of their race, all but 50 of them, including Omni-Man and Thetis themselves. So there's really only like 48 other Viltrumites because that also doesn't include Mark and now Oliver. When Argol died and Thragg became the regent of their people, his actual chief duty was to find all of Argol's heirs, all of his children. There were a couple of them, but most of them, all but one, were killed by the Scourge virus. and the one who lived remained a secret from everyone. Even he didn't know that he is the son of Argol, the true emperor now in present day of the Viltrumite Empire. We will see how long the show goes before actually revealing who this special person is, who their special destiny is. Maybe it'll be one of the final episodes this season. I don't think they're going to wait till next season, though. It'll be like one of the big reveals this season. When we meet young Omni-Man in the flashback and he's teaching this lesson to the younger children, he's also in the middle of reaching their age of maturity according to the society when they view him as an adult. Per their customs, he's tested by his adoptive parents. These aren't meant to be his biological parents either. He was born to someone else and then raised by these two, which is also why they hate him so much. Like the woman who's his mother ends this by saying, "I hope I never see either of you again," is because he is not her biological son. But in order to be viewed as an adult in their society, you have to survive this final test when your parents try to kill you. That's how hardcore the Viltrumites have become. I also kind of love how eager these other children are to kill each other because he tells them, "Two, you'll be dead tomorrow, so bring weapons." Then this time they give the title drop to the young Omni-Man character, and it's the same idea. The Viltrumite logo, like the gray and white logo breaking to the space beneath it.
Are you sure?
Omni-Man's adopted parents show up to give him his final test of adulthood, and he barely passes. He then continues into the ranks of their military and just prepares to go on an assault on another world per their normal tactics, conquering the universe the old-fashioned way until the Scourge virus starts sweeping the planet, killing 99.9% of their race. As I said though, you notice that it doesn't happen to everyone all over the planet instantly. It takes a while to spread around, and it doesn't affect all of them at the same rate. Like Omni-Man himself does succumb a little bit, like he gets sick, but he does wind up surviving it, as do 50 or like 49 other members of their race, technically. They all develop an immunity to this form of the Scourge virus. And it kind of seems like it takes months to work its way through the rest of the people, and billions of them are dead. And I love the imagery here of them putting them in a ring around the planet, just the imagery of all of these dead Viltrumites forever, just sitting there frozen. We get our first appearance of Thragg on the series, sitting on the throne. He's played by Lee Pace. You probably recognize that voice if you didn't see the trailers. Once they figure out what's happened with the Scourge virus, the idea is that Thragg develops their new tactics of conquering the universe and rebuilding their race by sending Viltrumites around the universe to find races suitable for interbreeding and conquering worlds with their hybrid offspring. Earth winds up being perfect for this, the most suitable match for their race, or one of the most suitable matches, which is why Omni-Man was sent there in the first place. Yes, to conquer the planet, but also to set up Earth as a source to rebuild their race with the hybrids. And Mark was the first successful test of that. Oliver's actually meant to be the second successful attempt with the Thraxans. So the idea is that the Thraxans can be used by Viltrumites to interbreed with as well. Not just Omni-Man, like any other Viltrumite could have sex with any of the Thraxans and create more hybrids. So part of the idea, these last couple of seasons, with all the different Viltrumites, like up to Conquest at the end of last season, saying, "You have a task, Mark. Your father's job is now your job." Basically to set the planet to prepare to be interbred with all the other Viltrumites so they can repopulate their race. They also take the time to explain why the 50 Viltrumites can't just start interbreeding with each other to create pure Viltrumites, because it's not enough genetic material to prevent problems with the interbreeding, Game of Thrones, Twincest, Targaryen problems. Right at the end of this montage, too, Mark sees his dead adoptive father and giving him pause, also meant to show you that he had like a little softness inside him even back then when he was super hardcore. Over the course of these first couple of episodes, you also start to see that too, the idea that not all Viltrumites are purely evil people and they do want to make the galaxy, the universe, a better place. They just need the right leader to actually put them on that path. There are also a couple Easter eggs at the end of this montage too. They revealed that the Scourge virus temporarily weakens the ones who survive, which is how Conquest lost his arm to the Ragnards, who we also see later in the episode in present day, and how Craig lost his eye. Love the way they transitioned back to present day to revealing the flashback was a story that Omni-Man was telling Alan, which they used for comedy, that now he feels bad for the Viltrumites. They arrive back at Telestria, go to Alan's home, have a bunch of funny moments with Telia, and use it as an excuse to give Omni-Man a couple new outfits that he has in the series. Telia also reminds you that there's a mole in the Coalition. We saw references to that in the previous season. We later learn that it's one of the Data twins by the end of the episode who's been passing information to Thragg this whole time. Omni-Man then explains the state of the Viltrumites to Thetis, who didn't know that there were as many as 50 survivors, expecting that there would be less, because he didn't check up on them that much after he sent the Scourge virus, or he wasn't able to. But at this point in the story, he isn't ready to fight Thragg directly or help the Coalition, but he is willing to help them find all the powerful weapons and people that might be able to stop them. They're really slow-rolling the redemption of Omni-Man. Eventually, Omni-Man, Oliver, Mark will all be working together with the Coalition team, but we're not quite there yet.
Autobots, transform and roll out!
Then they start their quest to go pick up all these different weapons and people to put on the team. They introduce the Venture, their parody of the Starship Enterprise from Star Trek. Venture as in Trek. Their crew are all Next Generation references, basically the bridge crew from Next Gen, and they have a parody of the Star Trek Next Generation theme song. But the real big joke here is that the ship is in terrible condition, the crew seem kind of like idiots and buffoons, and this is also right out of the comics too, like they're written to be this way in the comics. Their first stop along the way is to get Space Racer's help. They have another joke about Omni-Man being subjected to Alan and Tilia's sex. He then explains his history with Space Racer. He defeated him and buried him alive, but he was afraid that his gun might self-detonate if he tried to touch it because it's so powerful. He's meant to be a parody of Silver Surfer in the comics. This is also why he's so powerful. His race is so long-lived that just like 100 years under the rubble isn't that long for him. He doesn't look like he's gotten that much older. He is also voiced by Winston Duke, if you couldn't tell, M'Baku from Avengers Doomsday, we just saw him in the trailer, and the Black Panther movies. Space Racer was a good person, a hero, so he is willing to help the Coalition, and you also notice that when Omni-Man finally apologizes to him, it helps to start win him over. It's meant to be an example of how Omni-Man is slowly redeeming himself and how that's a good thing, like ultimately that will lead to a much better outcome for everyone. Just saying you're sorry will go a really, really long way. Then they go after the Synlac beetles next, which secrete a secret compound that can weaken the Viltrumites, then discover a very powerful but dead race after the Viltrumites push their planet closer to their sun to cause it to overheat and starve all of them. We meet the Geldarians, who are the race that built Tech Jacket's suit. He's kind of like the Blue Beetle of the Invincible universe, so they're kind of like the Reach race. On the show, they've also made some changes to Tech Jacket from the comics, and I believe on the show, it'll be a female voiced by Zoe Dutch. You also might have detected the cameo scene here too. The Geldarian warrior that they talk to is voiced by Troy Baker, who has done many famous voices. They explain that they can't help personally like their race can't help because their forces are still recovering from a Viltrumite attack that used another race to attack the planet because of their reduced numbers. So the Geldarians barely survived and they are rebuilding their forces. Which is meant to give Omni-Man another reason to have to go back to Earth. Like currently he said he can't go back to Earth, like eventually he will have to go back to Earth. Next they go to Battle Beast's home planet looking for him. We last saw him frozen in space after their escape, picked up by a couple other aliens, so he'll be back again soon. Another Easter egg, also Star Trek Easter egg in this episode, he is voiced by Michael Dorn, Worf himself. After the last sex joke, Omni-Man almost kills the captain, and he has another joke about thruples, thinking that Omni-Man was with the two of them. Then they go after the Ragnars, revealing that they set a solar disk up to freeze their planet to stop them because they're cold-blooded, also killing two of their planets in the process by blocking the sun. But the Viltrumites don't really care about that, they just wanted to slow down the Ragnars. Then explain the source of the Ragnar's power is their incredible gravity, just causing them to evolve to be extremely powerful, which they use this next montage for, with them like barely escaping with their lives after the shield collapses. Once they eventually escape, they say they plan to rebuild the disk, freeze the Ragnars again, then slowly move it, which will allow them to capture a couple of them without unleashing all of them. Also love how quickly the crew is willing to mutiny, like the whole crew hates the captain. Omni-Man's whole conversation with Alan here, too, is about the true mission of the Viltrumites. Their desire to make the galaxy better, fundamentally, is meant to foreshadow the future of them going forward in the comics, like show that they can make the universe a better place if they did have the right leader, if some other Viltrumite could possibly come along capable of leading them to that better future someday. Just keep that idea in the back of your mind, like the idea that the Viltrumites, the 50 survivors here, could become a good race if they had the right leader.
To improve the galaxy. And we did stop wars. We did make some planets better.
Thetis then shows Omni-Man another big WTF reveal, a new, more powerful version of the Scourge virus, which will definitely be able to destroy all the remaining 50 Viltrumites, including both Thetis, Omni-Man, Mark, and Oliver, which is why they decide it's only going to be used as a measure of absolute last resort, because he'd be sentencing Mark and Oliver to death too. Thetis and Omni-Man are ready to die, like they don't care, they're not afraid of dying, it's just that he doesn't want his children to suffer. Thetis also gives Nolan a pep talk too about redemption and gives him the push he needs to return to Earth eventually and get Mark and Oliver's help and apologize to Debbie and begin to make amends for what he did in Season 1. Then in the post-credit scene, another big reveal, Conquest finally makes it back to Viltrum and begs Thragg for forgiveness, asking him to die painfully as if that's a reward. I love the way they treat this too. I will not reward you with death. So the punishment is Conquest being tasked with destroying the coalition team that Omni-Man and Alan are currently putting together. You also notice in the background, Anissa and Craig are with him there too. They will become a bigger part of the story in present day as well too, pretty soon. Then the episode 3 title is I Gotta Get Some Air, and the opening scene starts with Titan coming to meet with Machine Head, foreshadowing him eventually joining the Order or rejoining the Order, with Machine Head basically double-crossing him or playing him and playing Mr. Liu from last season. Basically, the arc over this episode is Titan trying to get rid of Mr. Liu, who's also trying to get revenge on Titan for what happened last season. But the idea is that Machine Head only cares about making money, and keeping them both alive will mean making more money. So he's doing everything he can to try and mislead Titan and mislead Mr. Liu so that he can keep them both inside the Order. So basically, Machine Head here is playing four-dimensional chess, and Titan and Mr. Liu are just pawns of his. There are a couple really quick references, a little bit of exposition here where he explains that if he were part of the Order, he gets special protections from Mr. Liu. But the irony of that, as we find at the end of the episode, is that members of the Order cannot attack each other, and that's why Mr. Liu and Titan both rejoin. So Machine Head solves their problem, but in a very darkly ironic twist, where now they're forced to be together and can't kill each other. But at least now, Titan's family is safe by the end of the episode. We will see how long this piece lasts. We also get a brief joke about Invincible from Machine Head, who said that it's his friend with the onesie. But then we go back to Cecil, who views Mark killing Russ previously as a big red flag, worrying that he'll turn out just like Omni-Man if he goes too dark. They give him the title treatment this time, with more of the logo breaking to beneath the Viltrumites flying through space. We get a brief shot of D.A. Sinclair with his wife Daphne. He's turning the dead Invincible variants into the new, more powerful version of the Reaniman, the Invincible Reaniman. The Guardians have their own argument over whether or not Mark was right in killing Russ. Robot seems like the only one who's very anti-invincible, at least at the beginning of the episode, but he comes around on it later in the episode because of what happens with the Sequids. His little mini arc in this episode that winds up getting him stuck in the Flaxen dimension by the end of the episode is the idea that he ultimately comes to the conclusion that they need to find ways to perma-stop their villains from ever becoming threats again in the future and returning, because each time they seemingly stop one, they always come back more powerful than they were before. Also causing him to come around on Mark killing Russ, saying, oh, maybe it was good that he killed him, like maybe we should kill our villains too, so they don't come back to defeat us in the future. Which is basically why he stays in the Flaxen dimension, like, oh, we need to defeat the Flaxens, perma-killing them in their own dimension, that's why we can't return. While this is going on, Adam Eve continues her subplot trying to figure out what's going on with her powers. They're still not working right, but she doesn't find out that she's pregnant till like the very end of the episode in the post-credit scene. Titan spends time with his family and gets attacked by Magna Attack, who's sent by Mr. Liu to kill him in revenge, who seems like more of a Silver Samurai parody, but then gets help from Isotope, who rescues his daughter and wife, who we find out is secretly working with Machine Head, like Isotope was conspiring with Machine Head to get them both back on the Order. So if it wasn't clear, them going after each other was something that Machine Head had been orchestrating this whole time, forcing them to fight each other, so that it came to the point where they felt like they were forced to join the Order to stop it from happening.
Looks like we both got played.
It appears so.
We get a rare moment between Mark and Cecil, who tries to give him the benefit of the doubt about killing Russ and tries to give him some counseling because he still thinks of Mark as a good person, like he genuinely believes this and doesn't want to see him go dark like this, but he plans for the worst possible outcomes. He doesn't ever want to be unprepared, which is why he's creating the Invincible Reaniman. He also explains how doing things like this regularly, like Mark just did, being so extreme, has prematurely aged Cecil, wrecked his body, thus the need for the healing tank he spends in so much time every day. It takes a mental and physical toll on you in a way that Mark hasn't really foreseen yet. Basically telling Mark that if he continues down this path, it will not end well. You could look at this as a parallel to a couple other different storylines in the comics without getting too deep into spoilers. If you have read ahead in the comics, please don't post too much of that in the comments though. There are a number of other characters in the comics who are good now, who are driven down very dark places that do very, very terrible things in the distant future. We got a little bit of foreshadowing that with the time travel plot in Season 3 with like that distant future version of the Immortal and what was happening in that future timeline. Some really, really messed up stuff happens on Earth while Mark is not around in the distant future. D.A. Sinclair then surprises Mark trying to apologize to him for what he did at the college in previous seasons. It is part of the idea that even though people do bad things, not everybody is a fundamentally bad person. Like, there is redemption in there for everyone, which is also meant to flow with Omni-Man's arc this season too, the redemption of Omni-Man. Did all these terrible things, killed all these people, but is still ultimately able to redeem himself. Conveniently, Mark takes off before Cecil can tell him about Conquest, whether or not he was ever actually going to tell him about it, mostly leaving for the show to surprise Mark with the big reveal when Conquest eventually does return. And he will return. Mark is definitely going to regret not killing Conquest earlier. Titan then plans to stop Mr. Liu, but he's trying to find a legal way of doing it first, before saying he's willing to go to jail for killing him if it means his family will be safe. Isotope tries to convince him to rejoin the Order to get the protection he needs and help dealing with Liu, which is why I think that Machine Head was orchestrating all this in the background, because Isotope was working with Machine Head to get them both to rejoin the Order. Then the more comedic reveal of Oliver subbing in for Invincible, that Titan had called Invincible Inc. for help with Mr. Liu, like, oh hey, it's Oliver here to actually take care of the dragon. They interweave all the other storylines in the episode, the other characters, while this is going on in the background. Adam Eve getting help from Robot, and just as they start to work out a plan to fix whatever's wrong with her now, the Flaxens attack, calling them to action, stopping that. When we go back to Oliver carrying Titan through the air to Mr. Liu like this, it's meant to be a callback to Invincible carrying Titan earlier in the series. Then we learn more about this version of the Flaxens. Remember, a lot of time has passed since Omni-Man just wrecked their race, so they're a much more advanced version of those Flaxens. What they're doing this time is taking prisoners, and they developed a more powerful defense against the time dilation. The reason why they're taking prisoners is meant to be a reference to the Viltrumites, or the Thragg Viltrumite plan to conquer the universe and rebuild their race. The Flaxens are trying to do what the Viltrumites are doing. You remember their one real weakness is the way the time flows in the normal human dimension. They die almost instantly, so the Flaxens are trying to interbreed with humans, other races that won't have that problem and will be immune to the time effects in the regular dimension, and it'll enable them to be more powerful as a race and conquer the regular dimension. Basically the exact same thing that the Viltrumites are doing, trying to find another race with to rebuild their own race, then use those people to conquer the universe.
Rebuild ourselves at any cost?
The Guardians do have Mark's help, but the Flaxens also have powerful mechs that enable them to fight against someone of his power levels because of their fight with Omni-Man. Like, they basically developed defenses against Omni-Man, but they're still subject to the time dilation effect. Then Robot and Monster Girl are forced to rush into the Flaxens' dimension to save the people that they have captured. They escape, but Robot, feeling like they need to perma-kill the Flaxens in their own dimension because of what happened earlier with the Sequids that almost wound up getting him, decides to stay in their dimension until they're gone, which is what winds up ultimately getting them trapped in that dimension. So the really big side quest that Monster Girl and Robot are on now in the Flaxen dimension is sort of like a John Carter of Mars kind of story. It's like a really big thing that happens in the comics, and remember that even though they're not gone for that long in the normal dimension, because time moves so fast in the Flaxen dimension, they're basically going to be in there for a very, very long time, and a lot of really messed up stuff happens to them while they're in that dimension. Once the portal comes down, Invincible is able to go help Oliver before he's killed by the dragon Mr. Liu, who is able to escape, then almost winds up killing Titan himself until Oliver gets him to stop. Remember, more of him going darker and darker. Titan then feels like he's forced to rejoin the Order to protect his family, and also finding out what Machine has done, betraying both of them, basically playing both of them, so that Mr. Liu joins, and they're forced to be on the Order together, but now they can't attack each other, so technically his family is safe, so his problems have both been solved, and created a whole new problems. How darkly ironic. Then the really messed up WTF post-credit scene this time is the reveal that Adam Eve is pregnant, and that's why her powers have been acting weird. What is she gonna do now? This image of her reaction on the toilet here crashing out is right out of the comics too. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if you think you spotted any Easter eggs or references in the episodes that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments. Next week we only have one episode, so it'll be a little bit easier to spend more time digging into the actual episode itself. My episode 4 video will post next week after they release it. If they release a trailer for that in the next day or two, I'll do a video for that too. The other big reminder is that the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer should be out by the time that I have posted this video. That will be my next really big video, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everybody click here for that new Spider-Man trailer. I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for all my Invincible Season 4 episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.